And now it is my pleasure and my honor to introduce our next speaker, who I've had the occasion to see talk when I served at the World Center, and it was one of the highlights of my service there, were his talks. So if you'll please welcome to the stage a former member of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States and former member of the Universal House of Justice, Mr. Dr. Glenford Mitchell.
Good morning, friends. I'm delighted to be with you. You know, nothing thrills me more than to be in the company of youth and the young adults of our community. Our guardian in his monumental document, The Advent of Divine Justice, makes references to the youth. In one case where he mentioned them, he referred to them as those who can contribute so decisively to the virility, the purity, and the driving force of the life of the Baha'i community, and, listen to this, upon whom must depend the future orientation of its destiny and the complete unfoldment of the potentialities with which God has endowed it. So you are extremely important. You are indispensable to the cause. And I am glad that there is a conference like this to remind you of it and to stir you to action, to more action. Now we are coming to the end of a teaching plan, the 5-year plan of the Universal House of Justice. And I know you are very busy in your efforts to bring about the results that can be had from your efforts. And I want to draw your attention to a point that the Guardian made about such teaching campaigns. He said, those who participate in such a campaign, whether in an organizing capacity or as workers to whose care the execution of the task itself has been committed, must, as an essential preliminary to the discharge of their duties, thoroughly familiarize themselves with the various aspects of the history and teachings of their faith. In their efforts to achieve this purpose, they must study for themselves, conscientiously and painstakingly, the literature of their faith, delve into its teachings, assimilate its laws and principles, ponder its admonitions, tenets, and purposes, commit to memory certain of its exhortations and prayers, master the essentials of its administration, and keep abreast of its current affairs and latest developments. Now I'm going to be focusing on that which calls for us, for the young Baha'is and every other Baha'i, to master the essentials of its administration. We live in a time of great confusion, as you know, right around us, with our governments, our society as a whole. There is much that troubles us, And we see increasingly a sense of despair descending upon our people and people everywhere as things go apparently from bad to worse. But we Baha'is know that at the same time, things are also improving in some sense. There is a paradoxical development in these things that we see. Now, we have been called as Baha'is to raise up a new civilization. And the management of that civilization, the way that will make it effective and vital, is world order, which Bahau'llah came to bring to this world. Bahau'llah was interested and called our attention to the question of governance. It is a distinctive characteristic of the revelation of Bahau'llah. He places emphasis upon it. Of course, we're talking about governance as the administration of human affairs. In this regard, the revelation has offered more detailed guidance on principles of administration than any previous divine revelation. This offer is very much in keeping with the central goal of the faith, which is to establish the unity of the human race in every spiritual and practical sense. World unity and peace cannot be attained merely by a reawakening of the spirit of brotherhood or by increased acts of goodwill, as necessary as these are, nor can it be sustained without a system of management. A point worth noting is this. Despite the varied attempts at governance in the long history of civilization from antiquity to modern times, the human race has not yet succeeded in governing itself, at least well. Great strides have, of course, been made. This must be honestly acknowledged. Indeed, the methods of different forms of governance have advanced civilization in remarkable ways. But at this time, widespread turbulence and confusion greatly challenge nations to reach common ground on the matter of ordering the affairs of the planet in a way that will ensure global unity and prosperity. A way must urgently be found to achieve a permanent peace. A phenomenon noticeable throughout history, regardless of place and period, is the pursuit by governments of policies contrary to their own interests. So wrote the historian Barbara Tuchman in her book, The March of Folly. It's an interesting read. She went on to say, mankind, it seems, makes a poorer performance of government than of almost any other human activity. Now look around you and you see the point. Considering such comments, one would expect that mankind would want to welcome the assistance of advice from a divine source on a matter of such critical importance to its future, especially in view of the turmoil abroad in the world. In the goal of a new world order, Shoghi Effendi sharpens our perception of the necessity for divine assistance such as the revelation of Baha'u'llah provides. Humanity, he writes, whether viewed in the light of man's individual conduct or in the existing relationships between organized communities and nations, has, alas, strayed too far and suffered too great a decline to be redeemed through the unaided efforts of the best among its recognized rulers and statesmen. However disinterested their motives, however concerted their action, however unsparing in their zeal and devotion to its cause. So the statesmen of our time are in a condition of bewilderment because whatever they try to do doesn't seem to work as effectively as they expect. Now, lamenting the impotence of statesmen, Shoghi Effendi calls attention in this very same letter to the failure of those into whose hands the immediate destinies of peoples and nations have been committed to adjust their system of economic and political institutions to the imperative need of a rapidly evolving age, or to reshape the machinery of their respective governments according to those standards that are implicit in Baha'u'llah's supreme declaration of the oneness of mankind. This is the Guardian speaking. There is in these statements of the Guardian a strong hint to the followers of Baha'u'llah that they take action, persistent, determined action, in establishing, maintaining, and developing the Baha'i Administrative Order. The reason for such action is imperative, for he informs us repeatedly in his writings that the Administrative Order is the nucleus and the pattern of the New World Order adumbrated by Bahau'llah. Now, this perception of the Administrative Order is revealing and particularly compelling for those of us who have recognized Bahau'llah. It implies a responsibility we cannot ignore without dreadful consequence to the future state of the human race. In the advent of divine justice, Shoghi Effendi exhorts the North American Baha'is to thoroughly, I just read it to you, familiarize themselves with various aspects of the history and teachings of the faith. This is on page 49 of Advent, if that's the most recent edition you have. In enumerating these aspects, he advises them to do what? To master the essentials of its administration. So in these 2 days, let us learn what we can about these essentials, both to increase our understanding of them and particularly to equip ourselves to be effective in our efforts to set the pattern that can and will illumine the path towards the unity and peace of the nations. So that's sort of a preambular statement. Let me get on with the heart of the matter now. The world order of Baha'u'llah was foreshadowed in the writings of the Bab, his forerunner. In the Persian Bayan, the mother book of his dispensation, the Bab explicitly refers to it. Here's what he says. Well is it with him who fixeth his gaze upon the order of Baha'u'llah, and rendereth thanks unto his Lord. So you see, the Bab himself referred to it so clearly. Now, in announcing the earth-shaking effects of that order, Baha'u'llah, in the Kitab-i-Ahd, the mother book of his dispensation, asserts the following, and you know this well. The world's equilibrium hath been upset through the vibrating influence of this most great, this new world order. Mankind's ordered life hath been revolutionized through the agency of this unique, this wondrous system, the like of which mortal eyes have never witnessed. Baha'u'llah's announcement of a new world order marks the fruition of a purpose that has been evolving since the beginning of human life. World order is an object of human aspiration to which philosophers, poets, and other enlightened thinkers, not to mention the prophets themselves, have given thought from antiquity to modern times. The idea has grown with the stages of human development. It has expressed itself in the framework of each of these stages as the sphere of human collective life expanded. Family, tribe, city-state, nation-state. These, the circles of unity in the collective conduct and social interactions of humanity, have thus gradually been widened. These stages represent milestones in the evolution of human society. The efforts from time to time to form leagues and federations, whether of city-states or nation-states, has demonstrated through the ages the urge of the race to achieve political unity as a matter of necessity, if for no other reason. But spiritual unity, as a principle of life transcending mere politics, has ever been promulgated by the divine prophets. By ignoring this principle, too often, humanity has suffered disastrous consequences. Fortunately, we live in a day of renewal, the time of a fresh outpouring of divine grace, the timeliness of bringing about a new world order. This most exalted goal of human development is repeatedly affirmed by Bahau'llah in his writings. For instance, he makes this stunning assertion. Listen to this. The purpose underlying all creation is the revelation of this most sublime, this most holy day, the day known as the day of God in his books and scriptures, the day which all the prophets and the holy ones and the chosen ones have wished to witness. Now listen to how extraordinary is this statement. If you consider it, the purpose underlying all creation is the revelation of this day, the time in which you and I live. Just think of how extraordinary is that point. That we should be living at a time like this, to me, is something astonishing. That it is the purpose, this day is the purpose for which God created the world. The social progress of the human race, marked by the stages of its development, from the birth of family life to the emergence of the nation state, has at last reached that stage when it must mature and attain its fruition in a global order. You see, up until the nation state, we had just come to our adolescence. Now Baha'u'llah is inviting us into our adulthood. The operating principle of this ultimate goal is identified by Baha'u'llah as the oneness of humankind. This signals the coming of age of the entire human race. In other words, the object of the revelation of Baha'u'llah is to make the unity of the human race a global reality, a reality that is comprehensive, pervasive, and all-encompassing. This is a matter that effects both the transformation of our inner selves and the expression of our outer conduct. Clearly then, the long period of human social evolution has arrived at its final and most glorious stage. Shoki Effendi, the guardian of the cause of Baha'u'llah and the appointed interpreter of his writings, interprets the meaning of this principle of the oneness of mankind in unmistakable terms. The following example will suffice, at least for now. You'll find this in page 42, 43 of World Order of Baha'u'llah. Listen to what he says. He says, let there be no mistake. The principle of the oneness of mankind, the pivot around which all the teachings of Baha'u'llah revolve, is no mere outburst of ignorant emotionalism or an expression of vague and pious hope. Its appeal is not to be merely identified with a reawakening of the spirit of brotherhood and goodwill among men, nor does it aim solely at the fostering of harmonious cooperation among individual peoples and nations. Its implications are deeper, its claim greater than any which the prophets of old were allowed to advance. Now listen to this. He says that its message, that is of the oneness of mankind, is applicable not only to the individual, but concerns itself primarily with the nature of those essential relationships that must bind all the states and nations as members of one human family. Now think of this. States and nations as one human family. It's very difficult for us, even in our own little families, to have unity and love and peace among us. But now, Baha'u'llah wants all the nations and states to behave as one human family. See what a huge leap we have to make in our behavior. He says it does not constitute merely the enunciation of an ideal, but stands inseparably associated with an institution adequate to embody its truth, demonstrate its validity, and perpetuate its influence. I wonder what institution he's talking about. Now, this, to me, is the most critical statement of this explanation that Shoki Effendi has given. It's a very stirring statement. He says that this principle implies an organic change in the structure of present-day society, a change such as the world has not yet experienced. So we don't quite know what we're talking about, do we? We are working towards something so glorious, something that we have not experienced, which we understand from the writings of Baha'u'llah will be a wondrous moment. Now, he teases this out, and he tells us that it calls for no less than the reconstruction and the demilitarization of the whole civilized world, meaning what? A world organically, notice he uses the word organic and organically unified in all the essential aspects of its life, its political machinery, its spiritual aspiration, its trade and finance, its script and language. And all of these must be organically unified. And yet, infinite in the diversity of the national characteristics of its federated units. So we are really talking about a world that is unified, but is not monolithic. In other words, people do different things, as long as they observe essential principles. It's the way we operate in the natural world. We observe the principle of the law of gravity, don't we? Consistently. But we do other things, of course. We learn how to work with it. So this change that Shoghi Effendi writes about, so imminent and compelling, of social and political transformation, has aroused the attention of a growing number of thinkers. I'll recite what one of them has had to say about this. He says, the one thing we can be sure of is that the world that will emerge from the present rearrangement of values, beliefs, social and economic structures, of political concepts and systems, indeed of worldviews, will be different from anything anyone today imagines. In some areas, and especially in society and its structure, basic shifts have already happened. That the new society will be both a non-socialist and post-capitalist society is practically certain. And it is certain also that its primary resources will be knowledge. This also means that it will be a society of organizations. Certain it is that in politics we have already shifted from the 400 years of the sovereign nation-state to a pluralism in which the nation-state will be one rather than the only unit of political integration. Isn't that interesting? Now this was written by a man named Peter Drucker in a book entitled Post-Capitalist Society. You see how he himself has captured the spirit of the times, and he has a view of where things are going, which resonates very much with what we've been reading from Shoghi Effendi. Now, as to the further implications of the principle of the oneness of humankind, Shoghi Effendi goes on to tell us that it represents the consummation of human evolution. Now, there is a huge thought. It represents the consummation of human evolution. An evolution that has had its earliest beginnings in the birth of family life, the subsequent development in the achievement of tribal solidarity, leading in turn to the constitution of the city-state, and expanding later into the institution of independent and sovereign nations. One of the authors I've read mentions that the nation-state represents only a moment towards internationalism. And the Guardian tells us that the principle of the oneness of mankind, as proclaimed by Bahau'llah, carries with it no more and no less than a solemn assertion that achievement to this final stage in this stupendous evolution is not only necessary, but inevitable. That its realization is fast approaching, and that nothing short of a power that is born of God can succeed in establishing it. Now, if that weren't enough, let me take you to this. Shoghi Effendi offers us further insight, greatly expanding our appreciation of the magnitude of Baha'u'llah's call for the unity of the human race. This unity, of course, being the will of God for our age. Here is something that Baha'u'llah says, and this is quoted in page 163 of the World Order of Baha'u'llah. Baha'u'llah says, "It beseemeth all men in this day to take firm hold on the most great name, and to establish the unity of mankind. There is no place to flee to, no refuge that any can seek except him." So we are faced with an inevitability. The Guardian then goes on to explain to us how to understand this passage. So listen carefully. He says, the revelation of Baha'u'llah, whose supreme mission is none other but the achievement of this organic and spiritual unity of the whole body of nations, should, if we be faithful to its implications, be regarded as signalizing through its advent what? The coming of age of the entire human race. That's one point. Bear this phrase in mind. The coming of age of the entire human race. That's one of the implications. He goes on. It should be viewed not merely as yet another spiritual revival in the ever-changing fortunes of mankind, not only as a further stage in a chain of progressive revelations, not even as the culmination of one of a series of recurrent prophetic cycles. It's all of these, but more, you see. But rather, he says, as marking the last and highest stage in the stupendous evolution of man's collective life on this planet. You get it? The last and final stage in the stupendous evolution of man's collective life on this planet. So if that were not enough, bear that phrase in mind. He goes on. He says the emergence of a world community, the consciousness of world citizenship, the founding of a world civilization and culture, all of which must synchronize with the initial stages in the unfoldment of the golden age of the Baha'i era. All of these, he said, should by their very nature be regarded as far as this planetary life is concerned as what? The furthermost limits in the organization of human society. So we have three major points, implications of this principle of the oneness of mankind. The coming of age of the entire human race, the last and final stage in the stupendous evolution of man's collective life on this planet, and now the furthermost limits in the organization of human society. These are extraordinary ideas. These are the ideas that engage us in the work that we do. And so when you teach the faith, when you go to your study circles to deepen your knowledge of it, you engage in devotions, in acquainting junior youth with the teachings. When you do all of these things, what are you doing? You're actually setting the stage, bringing forward the vision for the achievement of these end results, which are extraordinary. They're mind-blowing. Now, you think that our teachings are the only ones that speak about the state of society being in turmoil and of achieving a new equilibrium, so to speak. Listen to something written by a guy named Robert Wright in a book that he entitles Non-Zero. He says, and consider what we have said from the Guardian's writings, he says, neither biological evolution nor human history is a smooth process. Both pass through thresholds. They can leap from one equilibrium to a new, higher level equilibrium. To some people, the current era has the aura of a threshold. It has that unsettling, out of control feeling that can portend a shift. Technological, geopolitical, and economic change seem ominously fast, and the fabric of society seems somehow tenuous. He says something else which is quite appealing, knowing what we know from the writings. He says, growing turmoil does signify by my lights a distinct step in the unfolding of what you could call the world's destiny. We are indeed approaching a culmination of sorts. How about that? Our species seems to face a kind of test toward which basic forces of history have been moving us for millennia. It is a test of political imagination, of our ability to accept basic necessary changes in structures of governance, but also a test of moral imagination. So people are thinking, they are affected by the spirit that Baha'u'llah has brought into the world. Now, even though Shoghi Effendi tells us that it's the coming of age of the entire human race, we are to attain the last and highest stage in the stupendous evolution of man's collective life on this planet, and that we should come now to the furthermost limits of the organization of human society, he tells us that man, as an individual, will, nay, must indeed, as a result of such a consummation, continue indefinitely to progress and develop. So if you think in terms of the human being that comes into the world as an infant and then evolves to childhood, and then to adolescence, we're talking about adulthood here. It's a long period of life when all that we've learned and experienced bear fruit, and we do things that are mature. And so it's the maturing of the human race that we are actually entering. So this oneness of mankind and all its implications for effecting an organic change in the structure of present-day society. The question that must arise in our minds is this: by what spiritual and practical means can so awesome an outcome be realized? What are we Baha'is up to? How, in fact, will the New World Order come about? There's such grand statements about it, such superlatives used about it. This, the Baha'i writings tell us, will involve the workings of two simultaneous processes initiated by the revelation of Bahau'llah. One is directly related to the administrative order he has ordained. Its course has been set, as Shoghi Effendi explains, by the revelation of those stupendous tablets constituting the charter of Abdu'l-Baha's divine plan. You know what we're talking about here, right? Say something. Yeah? The tablets of divine plan, the 14 that were addressed to our people here. The charter. So that first process has been set into motion by that charter. The Guardian goes on to say it will be consummated through the emergence of the Baha'i World Commonwealth in the golden age of the Baha'i dispensation. This process involves the followers of Bahau'llah directly, and those in North America particularly. All right. What is the other process? The other process is destined, as the Guardian says, to lead through a process of victories and reverses to the political unification of the Eastern and Western hemispheres, to the emergence of a world government and the establishment of the lesser peace, as foretold by Bahau'llah and foreshadowed by the prophet Isaiah. So now we know what Isaiah is talking about. You'll find this reference in Citadel of Faith, around about page 33. But a world government will not come about through direct action of the Baha'is. That is not our job, but will involve the American people and government particularly. So you see, you have two processes at work, one involving the Baha'is directly, the North American Baha'is particularly, the other involving the world and its leaders and so on, and the American nation and people particularly. Now this world government will not come about because we have directly acted upon it ourselves. It doesn't mean we won't have an indirect influence. However, as Shoghi Effendi has stated, it must in the end, that is the second process, culminate in the unfurling of the banner of the Most Great Peace in the golden age of the dispensation of Baha'u'llah. So, these two processes relating to the lesser peace, that is, organizing a world government and so on, and the Most Great Peace, which will bring about the world order in its fullness, indicate a division of labor, so to speak, the results of which are destined to merge. In one respect, this labor engages the rulers of nations who will, without any direct action of the Baha'is, organize a world government, a purely political necessity compelled by world conditions. We see it happening around us. We see it going on now. In the other respect, it employs the efforts of the followers of Baha'u'llah in two ways. In spreading the new teachings so as to effect a spiritual transformation in the character of individuals throughout the planet. Without this, we won't have world order, we won't have world peace, you see. And the other is in raising up the institutions of the administrative order of Baha'u'llah, which is to serve as the nucleus and pattern of the new world order forecast by him. These two essential processes will be consummated in the establishment of the new world order. And this, in a manner somewhat reminiscent of the emergence of a butterfly from the transformational dynamics of a chrysalis. Now, you've all heard about this in school. As you know, the chrysalis is the ultimate stage in the life form of a caterpillar, and the initial stage in the shaping of life of a butterfly. Ordinarily, one does not discern the butterfly in the caterpillar. The activities of the two are so dissimilar. One creeps, the other flies, has wings. One sees even less by looking at the chrysalis, which assumes a dormant, apparently lifeless state. It hides the great transformation occurring within. Then one day, a creature of exquisite beauty bursts forth. The organic change resulting from this metamorphosis suggests the nature of what at a totally different and spiritual and social level can be expected with regard to the establishment of a new world order, by which the most great peace will be sustained in the golden age of the Baha'i dispensation. The Baha'i writings speak of an administrative order and a new world order. How should these be perceived? We must first of all bear in mind that the administrative order and the new world order, though inseparably related, are not one and the same thing. The one evolves into the other. Being the nucleus, the administrative order is essential to something much larger than itself. The administrative order is a divinely ordained agency that is indispensable to the emergence of the New World Order. In his Rezvan message of 1955, Shoghi Effendi writes of an administrative order that must needs slowly evolve into the world order of Baha'u'llah, and which in turn will give birth in the fullness of time to the world spiritual civilization which posterity will hail as the fairest fruit of his revelation. This new world order will be the grand outcome of the reciprocal effects of on each other of the two processes to which we earlier referred. In other words, the ultimate coherence of what on the one hand the Baha'i community and on the other the nation states do to bring about world unity. This is not a matter that can be fully comprehended at this time. Commenting on the goal of a new world order, Shoghi Effendi writes, and you'll find this on page 34 of World Order of Baha'u'llah, to claim, to have grasped all the implications of Baha'u'llah's prodigious scheme for worldwide human solidarity, or to have fathomed its import, would be presumptuous on the part of even the declared supporters of his faith. To attempt to visualize it in all its possibilities, to estimate its future benefits, to picture its glory, would be premature at even so advanced a stage in the evolution of mankind. So we are not yet capable of seeing the end. We just have the vision and the processes that have been set in motion to lead us to the realization of that vision. Now, as to the administrative order itself, what we do know of it is that it is the structure of unity designed by Baha'u'llah to canalize the creative and constructive forces released by his revelation. See? It enables society to tap the benefits of the transformative influences flowing from that revelation, which are modernizing human life. Divine revelation is, of course, the mainspring of modernity in any age. The system of Baha'u'llah combines the spiritual and practical requirements of life in a union that ensures the integrity of our actions and the soundness of our progress. This is so because the system is founded on principles of unity and justice. Unity of the human race, it seems to me, is the social, political, as well as spiritual expression of love. Justice is its mainstay. As Baha'u'llah has said, the light of men is justice. The purpose of justice is the appearance of unity among men. What, we may well ask, is the nature of this justice that guarantees such a purpose? If we turn to Shoghi Effendi's masterpiece, The Advent of Divine Justice, we will find an illuminating definition of the term rectitude of conduct. This term crops up in Baha'u'llah's writings here and there, but you'll find in the Will and Testament of Abdu'l-Baha that he refers to it frequently. Rectitude of conduct, which Shoghi Effendi identifies as a prerequisite of success in all the undertakings of the Baha'i individual and community. And within this broad context, the meaning of justice in its various aspects is shown. So it is on the foundation of justice and unity that world peace is assured, on which a world civilization is being raised up as a reflection on earth of the kingdom of heaven so long anticipated in the prayer of Jesus Christ. So when we study and apply the principles of the administrative order, we are adopting the sure means of living successfully in the modern age, the means of establishing the kingdom of God on earth, which Baha'u'llah, the promised one of all ages, has come to accomplish. That we who follow him have become participants in so exalted an effort indicates the magnitude of the privilege that is ours, and that is possible to all who turn to him. Truly a privilege that is inestimable. So we return to the question, how is the Baha'i administrative order to be realized? The reality and benefits of such an order can be realized only if we recognize our contractual arrangement with Bahau'llah. I use this term contractual very deliberately. And then by endeavoring to fulfill our part of the contract. So what am I talking about, contract? I give you a simple reply. Go to the hidden words. You remember these words. Love me that I may love thee, right? If thou lovest me not, my love can in no wise reach thee. That's the contract. At the very heart of this contract is what? The covenant of Bahau'llah. Okay? So, let's take a bit of a break here. I mean, what? Okay, I have until 12:30. So, let's take a break, and you may have questions. You want to stand up in your seat, stretch, do whatever. And if you have questions now, I'll take some of them. So as you can talk a little bit, or if you have comments to make, it's all right. You know, I'm sorry that the lighting is such that I can't see your faces very clearly. I don't like this. I like to look into your faces. But anyway, do you have any questions? Are you tired? Are you bored? All right. This is serious stuff because you have inherited something that is fantastic. It's huge. It's not easy to comprehend. This is your legacy from Bahau'llah. It is your destiny. It is what gives you a purpose to live. Okay. So you don't have any questions? No? Ah, good. Come up with it. What? Oh, he's bringing a mic. You see, he wants you to be heard. Maybe I should take a sip of water in the meantime. Go ahead.
Well, you know, I was just kind of interested if you could talk a little bit. I mean, Ahd and I were both kind of asking the same question. What is meant by the appearance, and why is the word appearance of unity used?
Where is it used? The appearance?
Oh,
where Baha'u'llah says the appearance of unity among men?
Yeah, why appearance?
It's the reality of it.
Okay.
It means the coming into being of reality, of unity. You know when something appears? Presents itself, you see? The appearance in that sense. Not the appearance in the guessing sense, in the, the physical, the actual happening. Okay. Anything else? Get involved into this thing. I don't want to be just up here babbling on, and I want you to be involved in it. I hope you're following what I'm saying, because I'm going pretty fast, I think. Yes, let's have it.
What's your understanding of the significance of this year's Rezvan message, like in particular compared to previous ones?
Now, that is a little off subject here. I mean, I don't want us to divert our attention and go to other things. I want us to focus on what I'm talking about. But I'll make a very brief comment, and that is, it seems to me that this year's Rezvan message does 2 or 3 things. One, it explains things that perhaps we have not understood well enough before about the 5-year plan and its and its particular activities. It clarifies these things and opens our mind to an understanding of some of the things that we have been doing that were a bit too starchy, too rigid, too, you know how it is, when we get something new, sometimes we want to be obedient to the House of Justice, we want to be absolutely sure we're 100%, and we go so far, we crystallize it and make it so rigid that everything else that matters gets thrown away, and we're focusing on that so intently, and we lose the picture of the vision of things. I think the House of Justice is trying to get us back to an understanding that there are more things that matter as well. Another thing that I felt was that it was preparing us for what is to come in future plans. And that's how I understand it generally. Okay. So, okay.
Alapa, how does the regional council fit into the administrative order?
Why don't you ask the regional council how it fits into the administrative order? The regional council is an auxiliary body of the National Spiritual Assembly. Okay? Well, depending on where you are, they're either elected or appointed. It depends. The House of Justice decides, depending on the community and whatever, whether it's appointed or elected. Yeah. But it was intended to have an agency that would assist the National Assembly beyond the sphere of action of, say, a National Teaching Committee. All right? Okay. Yeah.
Can you say again, there was something that you were saying that was specifically from the Rizwan. Everyone can hear me, I'm pretty loud. There was something you were saying about the administrative order from the Rizwan message particularly.
I didn't say anything from the Rizwan.
I know.
Oh, I know. A Rizwan message from 1955.
Thank you.
That one. Okay. You're right. Go
Can
ahead.
you repeat that? Because
You want me to repeat it?
yes,
All right. I was talking about the.
it's the one that has.
I know what you mean. I was talking about the administrative order as being the administrative order and the New World Order as not being one and the same thing. Remember? I said that? And that the one evolves into the other? Yes?
Yes.
All right. So, and then I quoted from Shoghi Effendi to underscore that point. And he says in this letter, he says that he speaks of the administrative order he speaks of an administrative order, I'm quoting now, that must needs slowly evolve into the world order of Baha'u'llah, and which in turn will give birth in the fullness of time to the world spiritual civilization, which posterity will hail as the fairest fruit of his revelation.
Okay, so the question following that is, oftentimes in the world when we're dealing with what we're going to go for in the future, we would know what the end result looks like.
Yes.
Does that make so?
Yes.
And the next thing that you were discussing was that the whole notion of we cannot see the end, right? Because we can't fathom what the world order is going to give us. And I think oftentimes even in the Rizwan messages, because we tend to crystallize whatever it is that is given to us, I guess kind of discussing that, and I'm not sure what my question is, but how do we balance that, and where is it in the writings that we have those things in order to guide us better, obviously, except for, in addition to moderation, and those writings, what would be your insight?
All right. I think that you have to listen further to what I have to say, and perhaps you will get the answer to your question. If not, you can ask me later on. Okay. Now, I ended up by talking about the covenant, right, as being that arrangement that we have with Bahau'llah. Let me say something about that for the remainder of the time I have this morning. The covenant of Bahau'llah is the latest extension of the original covenant made by God with his human creatures. The basic covenant is the ancient arrangement by which God promised to send us divine guidance through his messengers. These messengers appear at different intervals of human history, as we've learned. We become a party to the covenant when we recognize the manifestation of God for our time. Each reinforces this ancient understanding by the arrangement he makes with his people. With reference to the covenant of Baha'u'llah, Shoghi Effendi explains that it has two forms. First is the covenant that every prophet makes with humanity, or more definitely with his people, that they will accept and follow the coming manifestation who will be the reappearance of his reality. Now, Baha'u'llah told us that not until 1,000 years has passed will one come after him, right? The second form of covenant is such as the one Baha'u'llah made with his people, that they should accept the master, Abdu'l-Baha. Under the same category falls the covenant of the master, the covenant the master made with the Baha'is, that they should accept his administration after him. Now we're going to get into that. The purpose of the covenant then, in a sense, is to keep humanity connected to divine reality from age to age. This divine reality is a reference to the one source, the one truth, the one faith, as revealed to humanity in stages, in accordance with the ability of souls to comprehend. This reality is thus progressively revealed with the successive appearances of the manifestations of God. In another sense, the purpose of the covenant is to ensure the fulfillment of God's will for the human race. Now we have two documents that contain the provisions of the Baha'i Covenant. One is the Kitab-i-Ahd. I had it copied for you. And the other is the Will and Testament of Abdu'l-Baha. Now, the Kitab-i-Ahd, its real meaning is the Book of My Covenant, was written in Baha'u'llah's own hand. And the Will and Testament was written in Abdu'l-Baha's own hand. These documents are closely related. Reading them in tandem, that is one after the other, and considering their contents together make their inseparable relationship clear. The Will and Testament completes our understanding of the Kitab-i-Ahd and certain provisions of the Kitab-i-Ahd itself. Generally, our discussion of the covenant focuses on certain provisions on which special emphasis is, of course, due. These have principally to do with such matters as hereditary succession, the authority to interpret and to legislate, and protection of the faith, and are of fundamental importance. But there is far more to the covenant than these. Knowledge of its other provisions is necessary if we are to appreciate the comprehensiveness of its purpose. Now, time does not allow me to elaborate on this subject, and so a few details must suffice for now. Oh, give me a minute. Let me get my material. Bring my pen. Yeah. Pull out your Will and Testament and Kitab-i-Ahd. I'll get my copies here. Bestows immeasurable bequests that recreate the forces of life throughout the planet. The ancient covenant is renewed, incorporating features that ensure the rise of a world civilization. Now look at the opening paragraph of the Kitab-i-Ahd. Look at how it indicates the special character of his bequest. And I'll just read a portion of it, not the whole thing. It's paragraph 1. He says, although the realm of glory hath none of the vanities of the world, yet within the treasury of trust and resignation, we have bequeathed to our heirs an excellent and priceless heritage. Earthly treasures we have not bequeathed, nor have we added such cares as they entail. So he's not about to distribute property. Clearly, a spiritual heritage is what he has offered, one far superior and more enduring than mere material benefits. Now, in the Kitab-i-Ahd, Bahau'llah reaffirms his appointment of Abdu'l-Baha as his successor. His first statement about this is in the Kitab-i-Ahd itself, which he revealed around about 1873. And this, of course, is an indescribable prize among his bequests to humankind. Now, what do we find among the bequests? And I'm using this word deliberately because the language sometimes doesn't make it easy for us to know that we are talking about bequests and not just statements that of instruction and so on. Listen to this. We have bequeathed to, in this document a particular thing. Look to paragraph 2 of the Kitab-i-Ahd. He says, the aim of this wronged one in sustaining woes and tribulations, in revealing the holy verses, and in demonstrating proofs, hath been naught but to quench the flame of hate and enmity, that the horizon of the hearts of men may be illumined with the light of concord and attain peace and tranquility. What is he offering us here? What do you think he's saying in all these words? Yeah? Warming up? Yes? The oneness of mankind, the unity of the human race he's bequeathing. He says that's why he suffered, to bring us this. All right. He also, in paragraph 14, which is the last one, it has only 14 paragraphs, he says, that which is conducive to the regeneration of the world and the salvation of the peoples and kindreds of the earth hath been sent down from the heavens, the heaven of the assurance of him who is the desire of the world. Give ye a hearing ear to the counsels of the pen of glory. Now, what is he bequeathing here, you think? What is it that he is offering us? Yeah? What else? I'm looking for something else. Huh? Salvation. What? No. I'm looking for something. Listen to this. That which is conducive to the regeneration of the world and the salvation of the people and kindreds of the earth hath been sent down. What hath been sent down? The revelation. He's bequeathed to us the revelation. He says, this has been sent down, and he says, give ear to this and to the counsels of the pen of glory. So he's offered us his revelation. So now, we have another, turn to paragraph, 7. And we find where he says, blessed are the rulers and the learned among the people of Baha. They are my trustees among my servants, and the manifestations of my commandments amidst my people. What's he doing here? What is he bequeathing here? The administrative order. It's as simple as that. Now, Shoghi Effendi explains to us the meaning of learned and rulers in a letter that he wrote on 4 December 1931. And this is what he said. In this holy cycle, the learned are, on the one hand, the hands of the cause of God, and on the other, the teachers and diffusers of his teachings, who do not rank as hands, but who have attained an eminent position in the teaching work. So that is a very broad category. Hands of the cause on one hand, and then those teachers and diffusers of his teachings who do not rank as hands, but who have attained an eminent position in the teaching work. In other words, these are extraordinary teachers and so on. Now, as to the rulers, he says, they refer to the members of the local, national, and international houses of justice. So the elected bodies are the rulers. All right. So he has bequeathed the administrative order. Now, of course, the centerpiece of his bequests is unique beyond description. It is that which makes the viability of all other bequests possible. It is the center of the covenant in the person of Abdu'l-Baha. And if you go to paragraph 9, you see where he tells us that the will of the testator is this. It is incumbent upon the Aksan, that's the members of his Bahau'llah's family, the Afnan, members of the Bab's family, and my kindred, to turn one and all their faces towards the most mighty branch. Consider that which we have revealed in our most holy book. When the ocean of my presence hath ebbed, and the book of my revelation is ended, turn your faces toward him whom God hath purposed, who hath branched from this ancient root. And he goes on to explain himself. He says, the object of this sacred verse is none other except the most mighty branch, of course, Abdu'l-Baha. Now, in this same paragraph, he says, verily, God hath ordained the station of the greater branch to be beneath that of the most great branch. And who is the greater branch? It's there, Mirza Muhammad Ali. He is in truth the ordainer and so on. So we have the possibility of a successor to Abdu'l-Baha in Mirza Muhammad Ali. But did that happen? No. Why? You know why? Why didn't that happen? He broke the covenant. And he broke the covenant in big time. I mean, if Abdu'l-Baha spends a large portion of the first section of the will explaining what went on there, and you beginning with paragraph 3 on to, for several paragraphs to paragraph maybe 13, 14, he tells us what happened, and we don't have to recite it here, it will take all morning. But for instance, that he tried to get Abdu'l-Baha killed, and he complained to the government, told lies to the government that Abdu'l-Baha was building a fortress with armaments, and that the pilgrims who were coming to visit Abdu'l-Baha, including pilgrims from America, were agents that Abdu'l-Baha was using to undermine the government of Turkey and eventually to take it over. Imagine such things. And you know what happened as a result of that. Abdu'l-Baha was thrown into jail again, and a commission was sent from the center of Ottoman Empire to try him and to look into things. Well, anyway, you know what happened. So a man like this couldn't have succeeded Abdu'l-Baha. Now we come to other bequests. These are in the form of guidelines as to how to qualify for membership in his cause, how to progress, both spiritually and materially, how to relate to one another, and to the various religions and to society. So for instance, in paragraph 3, he says, every receptive soul who hath set his face towards the all-glorious horizon is reckoned among the people of Baha. Now, I'm of course extracting certain things. I can't read everything for you. And this, of course, is what? It's the bequest of membership in the cause. If you want to become one of his people, This is what you do. You turn to him and believe in him. Then he tells us in that same paragraph, he says, refrain from slander and abuse. Yeah? If you turn now to the Will and Testament of Abdu'l-Baha, you find that Abdu'l-Baha repeats this in different words in paragraph 8, where he's talking about his half-brother, paragraph 8. And he says, according to the direct and sacred command of God, we are forbidden to utter slander, are commanded to show forth peace and amity, are exhorted to rectitude of conduct. I told you about that. Straightforwardness and harmony with all the kindreds and peoples of the world. So there you have it picked up in the Will and Testament by Abdu'l-Baha. So then we find in paragraph 6, for instance, where Baha'u'llah tells us that conflict and contention are categorically forbidden in his book. So that's one of the guidelines that he wants us to follow that will accrue to the unity and peace of the world. And we turn to the Will and Testament, paragraph 23. And what do we find there? That Abdu'l-Baha elaborates on this. What does he say? He says, O ye beloved of the Lord, in this sacred dispensation, conflict and contention are in no wise permitted. And he goes on to tell us every aggressor deprives himself of God's grace. It is incumbent upon everyone to show the utmost love, rectitude of conduct again, straightforwardness and sincere kindliness unto all the peoples and kindreds of the world, be they friends or strangers. And he goes on and on. So here we have this resonance in the Will and Testament of this statement by Baha'u'llah. He elaborates upon it. And we find, for instance, where in paragraph 4 he says, the religion of God, Baha'u'llah says in the Kitab-i-Ahd, the religion of God is for love and unity, make it not the cause of enmity and dissension. Remember? And if we turn to to paragraph 24 of the Will and Testament, you find that Abdu'l-Baha speaks at great length on this theme. He says, wherefore, O my beloved friends, consort ye with all the peoples and kindreds and religions of the world with the utmost truthfulness, uprightness, faithfulness, kindliness, goodwill, and friendliness, that all the world of being may be filled with the holy ecstasy of the peace of Baha, that ignorance, enmity, hate, and rancor may vanish from the world, and the darkness of estrangement amidst the peoples and kindreds of the world may give way to the light of unity. You notice how all these things revolve around unity, all of this advice. So we go down and we find that in paragraph 5, Baha'u'llah of his Kitab-i-Ahd, he says, kings are the manifestation of power, invested with the rulership of the earth. Pray ye on their behalf. Do we do this? Do we pray for our rulers? He has singled out the hearts of men as his own domain. In other words, Baha'u'llah has given the world to the rulers, and he has retained our hearts for himself. And this is what the rulers want, but we can't give them all of that. So we find that Abdu'l-Baha picks up this theme about kings and rulers in paragraph 8 of the Will and Testament. If you go there, you'll find where he says in the second sentence, I think, we must obey and be the well-wishers of the governments of the land, regard disloyalty unto a just king as disloyalty to God himself, and wishing evil to the government a transgression of the cause of God. We can't do the stuff that we hear people out here doing in relation to their politicians, cursing the government, cursing the president, making all kinds of nasty statements and so on. We Baha'is cannot engage in that. And then we find in paragraph 28, where the master picks up this theme again, he says of his Will and Testament, he says, O ye beloved of the Lord, it is incumbent upon you to be submissive to all monarchs that are just, and to show your fidelity to every righteous king. Serve ye the sovereigns of the world with utmost truthfulness and loyalty. Show obedience unto them and be their well-wishers. Without their leave and permission, do not meddle with political affairs, for disloyalty to the just sovereign is disloyalty to God himself. Now, I know you're dying to raise a question about this. And what is the question?
How do we qualify a just sovereign?
I knew it. I knew it was coming. I was waiting for it. What is a just sovereign? The Guardian answered this. I don't have the references in my fingertips, but this is accurately so. And if I have to find it, I'll tell you where to find it. He says that by just government is meant recognized and established authority. Recognized and established authority. That's what is meant by just government. In other words, the government that existed in the Soviet Union when we had that government was the government that we had to obey. The government that exists in Iran today, it is recognized and established. That's the government our Baha'i friends recognize, that they even go to jail under that. In other words, we are not a people who believe in anarchy. And I can tell you, friends, from history, that it is better to have an unjust government than no government. But what happens is that eventually unjust governments undo themselves, as happened in the Soviet Union, as happened in fascist Italy and Germany with Hitler, who thought he was going to run the world for 1,000 years, remember? In the twinkling of an eye, that is in God's eyes, it was over. So, all right, so let's move on then. Time is moving and I don't want to waste your time. Then we find in paragraph 13, Baha'u'llah is saying, we further admonish you. It's the last sentence in that paragraph. We further admonish you to serve all nations and to strive for the betterment of the world. Yeah? That's one of his instructions to us. And we know that we now, the House of Justice has told us in the Reswan message about our need to pay attention to the society around us. And you remember that years ago in 1983, in October of 1983, it wrote a letter calling us to engage in social and economic development, remember? And we are doing that in many parts of the world. Now, there are two paragraphs in the Kitab-i-Ahd which deserve particular attention. Go to paragraph 8, the Kitab-i-Ahd, where he says, "O my branches," he's now addressing his members of his family, "O my branches, a mighty force, a consummate power, lieth concealed in the world of being. Fix your gaze upon it and upon its unifying influence, and not upon the differences which appear from it." Now, what do you think he's talking about? A mighty force, a consummate power, lieth concealed in the world of being. Fix your gaze upon it and upon its unifying influence, not upon the differences which appear from it. While you're thinking about that, I'll read the other one. Paragraph 12 of the Kitab-i-Ahd. He says, "O servants," in one case he was addressing his branches, in the other case he's addressing us all. He says, "Let not the means of order be made a cause of confusion, and the instrument of union an occasion for discord." It's a sort of a riddle, but what is he talking about? What do you think he's talking about? Huh? World order? What do you think? What do you think? Huh? Huh? Consultation? What do you think he's talking about? The instrument of union? What's that? Covenant. Somebody out there blurted it out. The covenant. Remember, he's talking to his branches. He says, "A mighty force, consummate power, lieth concealed in the world of being." Abdu'l-Baha tells us that speaks of the power of the covenant. He says, fix your gaze upon it and upon its unifying influence, and not upon the differences which appear from it. But if you think about what Mirza Muhammad Ali did in relation to the covenant, you get an insight into what he was instructing his branches to do, to pay attention to that consummate power, that source of union. And then, of course, in the other paragraph, the instrument of union is the covenant. Of course, the covenant is also the harbinger of the administrative order, so it hatches all of these things that that ensure unity to the cause. So, the will and testament, let me go on quickly. The will and testament of Abdu'l-Baha is described by Shoghi Effendi as the child of the covenant, as you know. And we don't have enough time to get into that now. I think. He writes, of course, of the administrative order as the framework of the will itself. And so we find that, I'll perhaps take it up with you later on. Let's do a summary on the will and testament. It's based on what the Guardian wrote in God Passes By. You don't have it there, but I can give you the page number, page 328, where he talks about the document, which is the will and testament, establishing that order, the charter of a future world civilization, he calls it, which may be regarded in some of its features as supplementary to no less weighty a book than the Kitab-i-Ahd, signed and sealed by Abdu'l-Baha, entirely written in his own hand, its first section composed during one of the darkest periods of his incarceration. He tells us that it proclaims categorically and equivocally the fundamental beliefs of the followers of the faith of Bahau'llah. And you go there and you'll find it. I don't have time to read it to you now, where he says, this is the belief of the people of Baha, and he tells us. It asserts that it discloses the full station of the author of the Baha'i revelation, asserts that all others are servants unto him and do his bidding, stresses the importance of the Kitab-i-Ahd, establishes the institution of the guardianship as a hereditary office and outlines its essential functions, provides the measures for the election of the International House of Justice, defines its scope, and sets forth its relationship to that institution. Now, it is in the Will and Testament that we learn for the first time how the House of Justice is to be brought into being. Bahau'llah did not say anything about it. Abdu'l-Baha told us how it would happen. It prescribes the obligation and emphasizes the responsibility of the hands of the cause of God. It extols the virtues of the indestructible covenant established by Bahau'llah. I could go on, but I'll leave you to read the rest in your quiet moments. So, speaking of these two documents, taken together, the provisions of these two documents complete the structure of the covenant of Bahau'llah. And we are able, both from their texts and the actions of Abdu'l-Baha as the exemplar of the teachings, to derive an appreciation of its uniqueness and dynamism. Now, instruction and experience have made the efficacy of the covenant quite clear, whether as an instrument of union or a means of order. The covenant is indeed the axis of world unity. Abdu'l-Baha tells us this. All that we do revolves around it. The covenant encapsulates the essentials of the faith. It connects hearts with Bahau'llah and his purpose. From this connection, souls derive the divine confirmations that nourish their faith and energize their efforts. It unites peoples. It activates and sustains the system that guarantees success of the plan of God. Now, Abdu'l-Baha, as center of the covenant, is the divinely chosen instrument that connects all elements of the revelation in a workable plan of action. His will and testament, Shoghi Effendi states, should be regarded as the perpetual, the indissoluble link which the mind of him who is the mystery of God has conceived in order to ensure the continuity of the 3 ages that constitute the component parts of the Baha'i dispensation. What are these 3 ages? You know? You know what the 3 ages are? Yeah? The heroic age, the formative age in which we live, and the golden age, right? And so the will and testament connects these ages by giving us the instruments, the institutions, the order, and the system, you see. The center of the covenant has left detailed explanations and instructions both for teaching and for the operation of an administrative order, as you know. If the covenant is the axis of the oneness of mankind, Abdu'l-Baha is at the very center of that axis, both as interpreter and exemplar. Interpreter of the word with respect to the means of realizing the oneness of humankind. He translates the meaning of the word into intention and deed, showing us how to activate the divinely ordained system that is to usher in the New World Order envisioned by Bahau'llah. He also translates meaning in relation to personal character and conduct by exemplifying the principles, or you might say the virtues, of the revelation in his own life. So when we need an example, we turn to Abdu'l-Baha. In his person, as in his words, the covenant becomes a living ideal manifested in both mystical and practical terms. Remember what the president of Stanford University said here when he was introducing Abdu'l-Baha? He said, he spoke of him as what? Walking the practical path with, mystical path with practical feet. Thus, he is the medium between word and outcome in all the implied purposes of the covenant. Meaning is realized in deeds, action, system, structure. Abdu'l-Baha is the very embodiment of the covenant. Absent Abdu'l-Baha, the world order of Bahau'llah would not exist. The reality of the covenant would remain obscure. So I'm going to end on that note. You have any questions? You have 2 minutes. Or you can store them up for later on when we start up again. I think I'll back here. I think. Yeah? Okay.